Hello, my darlings, and welcome to a new episode of After Dark Fairy Tales. I have a new story for you guys, and this one was written by the narrator. Yep, that's right. It's not really new. I wrote it maybe about a year ago, and the title of it is called Mortal Ninja Queen. So, I hope you guys like it. I must warn you, it is a little explicit, so don't let your babies listen to this. If you have children, no, don't listen. It has some rough scenes, but I hope you guys enjoy this one, and it's pretty long, so you guys should enjoy this story even more. And to all my new subscribers, I'd like to say welcome to After Dark Fairy Tales, and I hope you're enjoying the stories, and I really hope you guys enjoy this one. So I'm gonna hop right into it, and you guys let me know what you think about my story in the comments below. It is explicit, I'll warn you again, but it's not really horror either. It's more like sci-fi action. So, are you guys ready? Here we go. Mortal Ninja Queen by Prince Narrator. Chapter 1. Jonathan's mother, Michelle Yang, was a world-famous pop star. She won 3 Grammy Awards and 2 American Music Awards. Jonathan loved his pop star mom, and he thought she was the coolest mother in the world. But a gunman brutally shot and killed Jonathan's mother during a carjacking. The child's mother couldn't have an open casket funeral because the gunman repeatedly shot Jonathan's mom in the face 13 times at point-blank range. Doctors tried to reconstruct Michelle's face so she could have an open casket funeral, but the damage to her face was too great. Jonathan saw his mom a few nights ago. The last time Jonathan saw his mom was on a Tuesday night. Johnny Baby was what she would call him. Jonathan remembered his mother calling him Johnny Baby twice on the night the gunman murdered her. The first time she called him Johnny Baby was after she tucked him into bed. Jonathan thought about the lullaby his mom sang to him before kissing him on his lips. The second time Jonathan's mom called him Johnny Baby was over the phone. Michelle had to leave that night. After tucking her son into bed, she had to leave him with his dad. Jonathan's mom had to go to a fashion shoot that night. Johnny wanted to hear his mother's voice after he had a nightmare. The child called his mom that night and was so glad to hear her voice, her soothing voice, coming out of his smartphone. "Hey, Johnny Baby, is everything all right?" That's what Michelle said to her son when she answered her phone. Jonathan was crying after he woke up from his nightmare, but he stopped crying when he got serenaded by his mother's sweet voice. Jonathan had to talk to his mom, and hearing her voice dried his tears immediately. Michelle had a very sweet and distinctive voice. Her voice had a soothing, baby-like quality, but it also had a soft and raspy edge. Jonathan was listening to his mother sing to him again, this time over the phone. The little boy never had time to hear the end of his mother's lullaby. Instead, what Jonathan heard was his mother screaming and cursing at someone. Jonathan heard a man's voice shouting at his mom, and then he heard the gunshots. "I'm talking to my son. You can't kill me. I'm a mother," Jonathan heard his mom scream out. "Please don't shoot me. I'm a mom, you piece of shit. My baby is on the phone and he can hear me." Michelle pleaded with the man, and she screamed at him after he put a bullet in her leg. "Johnny Baby, I love you." Those were the last words Jonathan heard his mom say before he heard the gunman shoot her for the final time. Jonathan thought about how he heard the voice of the gunman. He remembered how he heard the man telling his mother to shut up before shooting her. Most 7-year-old boys would have psychological damage for the rest of their lives after hearing their mother get shot to death over the phone. But Jonathan didn't have psychological damage after losing his mom. The child never shed a single tear as he sat between his grandmother and his father at his mother's funeral. Jonathan felt a little sorrowful while looking at his mother's closed casket. But Jonathan's sorrowfulness wasn't over the death of his mom. Instead, it was over the fact that he had to pack up his things and move to a new place. Jonathan had to wear black, and he hated wearing a suit and tie. So instead of wearing a black necktie, Jonathan wore his little black turtleneck underneath his suit jacket. Celebrities crowded Michelle's funeral. The celebrities were singers, rap stars and movie stars, and also well-known athletes. Jonathan's mom had a lot of connections in Hollywood, and she was friends with a lot of rap stars and pop singers, old and new. A lot of celebrities greeted and gave their condolences to Jonathan and his father. Jonathan thought of a gift he received from an old man who was a former rap star and close friend to his mother. The old man walked up to Jonathan and he caressed the child's face before giving him a nice present and telling the little boy that he was sorry about his mother's death. Jonathan remembered the old man telling him how he was like a father to his mom. The child also remembered thinking how the old man looked young for his age. The old man sported a silver gold tee and had rugged good looks. He had diamond stud earrings in both of his ears, and an array of expensive gold and silver jewelry hung from his neck. The old man also wore a black vest which exposed his chiseled, bulky arms. Jonathan remembered the old man telling him his real name, which was Simir. But the old man also told Jonathan that he could call him by the stage name he had tattooed on his arm, which said Lil Uzi Vert. Another elegantly dressed former rap star who went by the name 21 Savage gave his condolences to Jonathan and his father. The handsome and ageless old man embraced Jonathan between his massive tattooed arms, and he told the little boy that everything would be okay. Also, a sexy old lady wearing a silver lace dress greeted Jonathan by giving him a kiss on his forehead. The sexy old lady used to be a former rap star who called herself Megan Thee Stallion. "I'm sorry about what happened to your mom, sweetie. I'll be praying for you." A 54-year-old former pop songstress gave her condolences to Jonathan through her English accent. The beautiful old lady who spoke to Jonathan and his father was a well-known pop singer, and her first name was Dua. She used to be a model, and London was her hometown. "Thank you, Miss Lipa." Jonathan spoke softly to the old lady, and he gave the woman a shy smile after she touched his chin. Jonathan thought the old lady had a beautiful face, and he liked the hot red streaks she had in her hair, which made her look like a futuristic fashion model. Jonathan thought the old lady was cool, but he knew that his mom would always be the queen of cool. Michelle had coolness oozing out of the pores of her flawless, ivory white skin. Jonathan's mom was of Asian descent. She was born in Shanghai, China, and she grew up in Austin, Texas. Jonathan's mother looked like a goddess disguised as an Asian woman. She had a mystical beauty, and her face and curvaceous body was perfect. Jonathan would often hear people say that his mom looked like an Asian Jennifer Lopez, also known as J-Lo. Jonathan didn't know who J-Lo was, and he didn't know why people would sometimes compare his mother's beauty to this woman he didn't know. Since J-Lo was before his time, Jonathan wasn't familiar with the iconic actress and singer. Jonathan didn't know who J-Lo was at first, until his father showed him a Google image of J-Lo. Jonathan could see the resemblance between J-Lo and his mom, but he knew that his mom was more beautiful and cooler than J-Lo. Jonathan thought about everything that made his mom cool. He thought about her hairstyle, which was a pompadour, zero-faded haircut. Jonathan thought about how his mother's platinum blonde, cyberpunk, Marilyn Monroe-like hairstyle had a mohawk design. Sometimes she would wear her platinum white hair in a spiky style. Jonathan thought about when his dad called his mom the girl with the tiger tattoo because she had a large tattoo of a white tiger on her slender back. Jonathan saw the tattoo one time on his mother's back when she took him to the Billboard Music Awards. The child remembered holding hands with his mother while walking down the red carpet. He remembered watching his mother pose for photographers, and he remembered watching her spin around in her glittery sapphire Vera Wang dress, which had an open cutout V-shape in the back. Jonathan remembered looking up and seeing the tiger tattoo on his mom's exposed backside. He thought about how it looked like the face of a real white Siberian tiger that had its mouth stretched open. The tiger tattoo wasn't the only thing that Jonathan thought about. The little boy thought about his mother's cool physique and her unique dress code. Jonathan's mom had slender, muscular arms and thick, shapely legs. She had an hourglass shape, which made her hips look curvy and well-proportioned. Jonathan thought about how his mom's choice of clothing always had a futuristic essence. He remembered how she wore a sleeveless, low-cut dress made of silvery white leather. What made the low-cut dress interesting was that it had the capability of downloading and uploading music and video files to the internet. An Italian technology fashion designer named Mike Vitonici designed the dress specifically for Jonathan's mom, and the dress cost $7.5 million. Jonathan's mom could upload videos to the internet, and she could even use the Italian designer's dress to recharge her phone. Jonathan thought about how his mom sent a video to his phone using her Vitonici dress. In the video, Michelle sang a love song to her little boy, which she wrote for him. Michelle wanted to get her son's opinion on the song, and she knew that Jonathan would like it. Jonathan thought about what truly made his mom cool. It wasn't her futuristic fashion, her tiger tattoo, or even her beauty. What made Jonathan's mom cool was her kindness and her love for other people. Jonathan wanted to be a philanthropist like his mom. The little boy wanted to give millions of dollars away to charities, and he wanted to give away food and toys to sick children. Jonathan would often go with his mom when she would visit a hospital and give away gifts. The child loved watching his mom give gifts to people who were ill. He especially loved watching his mom give toys to sick children. He loved watching his mom comfort sick babies by holding them in her arms and singing to them. Jonathan thought about how his mom sang to a 4-month-old baby suffering from sickle cell disease. He remembered watching his mother hold the child in her arms while serenading the infant with her beautiful voice. Jonathan even remembered how his mom paid for a teenage boy's surgery after she found out that the boy's mother couldn't afford it. This is what Jonathan loved the most about his mom. He loved her generosity, and he loved how she used her celebrity to show kindness towards the homeless and provide for people who were destitute. There was a lot of mourning going on around Jonathan as he sat in the front pew a few feet away from his mother's casket. Everyone at the funeral was crying except Jonathan and his dad. Craig, Jonathan's father, worked for a SpaceX division company. He was a space engineer, and he had a Brad Pitt essence to his face and his persona. Jonathan's father was very handsome, and he was just as kind as his mom. There was one thing that Jonathan didn't understand in the relationship his father had with his mother. Jonathan found out that his mom was mad at his father about something. The child later found out what his mom was mad about. It had something to do with his father's job as a SpaceX engineer. It also had something to do with a space trip that his father went on 3 months ago. Jonathan's father had a degree in aerospace engineering, and he had traveled to the stars many times. Jonathan's father promised him he would take him on one of his trips to the stars one day. Jonathan's dad was 15 years older than his mom. Craig was a little sorrowful about his young wife's passing. The father put his arm around his son, and he gave Jonathan an adoring smile. Craig caressed the top of his child's head, and he leaned down slightly to kiss Jonathan on his forehead. "You packed up all your stuff, buddy?" Craig asked his son, and he watched as Jonathan nodded his head. "I packed everything, and I can't wait for this funeral to be over so we can go," Jonathan whispered in his dad's ear. The little boy looked around at his grandmother to make sure she wasn't listening to him and his father. "It'll be over soon," Craig told his son. "I know you didn't want to come to your mommy's funeral, and I know you hate funerals, but it'll be over and then we can go." While Craig was comforting his son, he looked over at his mother-in-law, Jonathan's grandma, to make sure she wasn't looking at him or his son. Craig especially made sure that Jonathan's grandma couldn't hear what he was telling his son. "You said that we only have an hour left," Jonathan asked his father, wanting his father to comfort him again, that his mother's funeral was almost over. "Yeah, we got one more hour and then we're out of here. The place we're going will be exactly the same, only there'll be no funerals. We'll have a lot of fun, kiddo. This will be your first time riding on a space shuttle." Craig whispered his comforting words to his son. The father loved seeing a smile forming across his son's tiny lips, and he also loved brushing his fingers through his child's soft and curly, blondish afro. Chapter 2. 8 thuggish guys with criminal backgrounds were taking apart the body of Michelle's car. The bulky and sweaty young guys loved stealing cars and taking them apart. They loved taking apart Michelle's iridium blue Infiniti Q50 hybrid. The gunman who carjacked Michelle drove her luxury sedan to a Miami chop shop where he parked the car amongst other stolen vehicles. "His car is beautiful. It's a shame I had to kill that lady to get it. She was pretty." The man who shot Michelle in the face 13 times spoke out to his buddies. He laughed at how he murdered Jonathan's mother. He kept talking about how he killed Michelle while helping one of his boys remove the Infiniti's windshield. Carlos Mendoza was the name of the man who murdered Michelle. He told his gang member homeboys how Michelle was talking to her son over her phone when he shot her. Carlos talked about his murder with a reminiscent passion in his deep and gravelly voice. The man spoke about killing Michelle as if he wanted to kill the young woman again. Carlos was an opposing man. He was half Latino and half German. The ex-convict had long midnight black hair that flowed past his broad, tattooed shoulders. Carlos had a well-built physique, and every inch of his body was nothing but raw muscle. He also had ritualistic tattoos decorating his skin, which turned his body into an art gallery from hell. Carlos was the boss over his gang of men who called themselves the Miami Cobras. Michelle wasn't Carlos's only victim. Carlos had committed multiple murders in other states. He was a young drug kingpin who loved stealing cars and selling parts as his side job. Carlos was a young man, and his murder career was just beginning. The 24-year-old bad boy would kill at the drop of a hat if he sensed any opposition from his victims. He would often kill anyway if there was no opposition from his victims. If Carlos robbed you, then you better give him what he wanted. Even after giving him your wallet or your car, he would still possibly murder you just for inconveniencing him. Anything would set Carlos off. The young thug shot a woman in the head because she accidentally dropped her purse before she could hand it to him. The woman inconvenienced Carlos when she dropped her purse. She got shot 3 times in her skull after she picked her purse up and handed it to Carlos. Carlos had a history of committing senseless and inhuman acts of violence. His brothers witnessed him decapitate a man and his teenage daughter with a machete because the man owed him drug money. There were 4 men helping Carlos disassemble Michelle's car. 2 of the men were Carlos's brothers, Domingo and Andreas. Domingo and Andreas weren't as ruthless as their younger brother, but they both committed their fair share of heinous criminal acts. Domingo killed no one, but he beat his pregnant girlfriend up so badly that she lost her baby. Andreas almost killed a hooker by shooting her in her vagina. Andreas pulled out his gun and shot the prostitute between her legs because she commented on the size of his manhood. Carlos, Domingo, and Andreas were the 3 Miami kings of violence. Carlos's girlfriend had a baby by another man, and Carlos threatened to throw his girlfriend's baby out of the window of their 4-story apartment because she refused to give him a back massage. Carlos's girlfriend, whose name was Ashley, had to ignore the pain from her broken hand after her boyfriend forced her to massage his back. You should have seen the look on that bitch's face when I pulled out my gun and told her ass to give me the keys to her car. Carlos continued to describe what he did to Jonathan's mother. The young man felt a sick sexual thrill from telling his brothers how he killed Michelle. Carlos also had a secret. He didn't tell his brothers that a mysterious person paid him to kill the pop star. The ex-convict kept the blood money to himself, and he found pleasure in making his brothers believe that he committed a random act of murder. She was pretending to look brave at first until I pulled out my gun and shot her in the leg. The bitch started crying like a baby, and then she started yelling at me, telling me she was a mother. I've killed bitches who were mothers. When I shot that bitch in her leg, she screamed at me and told me she was a pop singer. I thought that was funny. Carlos chuckled as he looked around at his brother Domingo, who was shaking his head. You didn't recognize the lady? Domingo asked his brother. They've been reporting her death all over the news. I recognized her when they showed her face. I remembered seeing her at a live concert. I even got some of her music. You shot Michelle Yang in the face. She was a pretty pop singer, man. Domingo could see that his brother was getting pissed at him. I never heard of no Michelle Yang. You act like you're mad because I killed her. She wouldn't give me the keys to her car. Carlos raised his voice at his brother. You like that lady? Is that why you're telling me she was a pretty singer? Because you didn't want me to kill her? Is that it? Carlos placed his hand on his gun, which he had tucked into his waistband. Domingo knew that his younger brother was threatening him. I just thought you recognized her, man. I'm not saying that you were wrong for killing her. You should have shot the bitch. All I'm saying is that the lady was a world-famous pop star. I thought you recognized her. That's all I'm saying. Domingo put both of his hands up, and he tried to diffuse Carlos's anger toward him. The man didn't want his brother to shoot him. He had his eyes locked on Carlos's pistol. Domingo already knew that Carlos had a short fuse. He also knew that his little brother was a prankster, and he was glad to find out that Carlos's threat to shoot him was a joke. You thought I was about to shoot your ass, Carlos snorted and laughed like a hyena. The young crime lord playfully slapped his older brother across his face. I'm sorry I didn't recognize the bitch. I didn't know she was a pop star. All I wanted was the keys to her ride, and she refused to give them to me, so I shot her ass in the face. Carlos whispered in his brother's face after grabbing the back of his brother's head. Carlos rubbed the back of his brother's head affectionately, but he also gripped the back of his brother's neck, expressing a threatening gesture. I killed the lady because she disobeyed me. When you disobey me, I put you in an early grave. I don't give a damn who you are. You could be a world-famous rap star or a movie star, and I'll kill your ass if you don't do what I want. Because I'm the devil, and you obey the devil when he tells you to do something. Carlos whispered harshly in his brother's face while still gripping the back of Domingo's neck. Even though Carlos was whispering to his brother, His cold words were loud and clear. Carlos wanted to continue bragging about his murderous instincts to his brother, but the screaming voice of a young woman interrupted him. It was the voice of Carlos's girlfriend, who was shouting at him from a distance. Ashley started yelling at her boyfriend as soon as she stepped into the chop shop. Ashley worked at a strip club, and after she left her workplace, she stopped by her boyfriend's workplace to give him a piece of her mind. Ashley had on a golden fox fur coat, and she had on nothing but a thong underneath her expensive coat. Her pink stripper platform heels were clicking against the ground from every militant step she took. Ashley threw her long blonde streaked hair over her shoulders, and her diamond-encrusted hoop earrings were swinging wildly against the side of her delicately pretty doll-like face. "Hey, baby girl." Carlos's dull gray eyes widened as he laid them on his approaching girlfriend. The ex-convict held out his bulging arms to receive a hug from his girlfriend. He thought he would receive a hug and a kiss, but instead he got bitch slapped across the face. "Don't touch me. You're an animal," Ashley shouted at her boyfriend while pushing him back. The young woman would shove and punch Carlos every time he would try to put his arms around her. "Baby girl, I'm here with my boys. You just can't come in here and slap me in front of them," Carlos spoke softly to his girlfriend while scratching his beard. He tried to put his arms around his girlfriend again, but he got slapped in the face. "I told you not to touch me." Ashley slapped her hands all over Carlos's muscle-bound chest while shoving him back. "You're cheating on me with Melissa now? You're fucking my sister? Don't you lie to me because I saw the text messages on your phone." Ashley's spicy Cuban accent sounded more intense every time she would say a curse word. "Baby girl, I can explain everything. Just let me take you home. You shouldn't be in here." Carlos kept speaking softly to Ashley. The gang leader wanted to kiss his girlfriend, but he kept getting slapped across his mouth. "I ought to kill you right in front of your boys," Ashley threatened her boyfriend, and she felt tempted to reach into her purse to get her pocket knife. "I should cut your dick off because you don't need it. You're sleeping with my sister while I'm out trying to make a living." Ashley went on a tirade, and she kept hitting on Carlos as if his tall, bulky body was a punching bag. "Can you please calm down? Don't make me hit you, because you know I'll do it." Carlos knew that his soft, threatening words weren't getting through to his girlfriend. The young man licked his lips when he felt a kindling rage rising inside of him. "Why did I get mixed up with you? I brought you into my son's life, and you've been nothing but a bad example to him. I'm sick of you, and I don't want to be with you anymore." Ashley spoke through clenched teeth with tears swelling up in her eyes. The frustrated young woman hated herself for being attracted to Carlos. She promised herself that she would never chase the bad boy types again. "Please let me take you home, baby girl. I don't want you here." Carlos didn't care about his girlfriend's well-being. He only cared about getting her out of the chop shop. The gangster pretended to care about his girlfriend, and he tried to look sincere as he gazed down into her eyes. Carlos tried to caress his girlfriend's arm, but Ashley refused to let him touch her. "You're a liar and a cheater and a murderer. I know you killed that woman. I know about that pop singer Michelle Yang. They've been talking about her all over the news." Ashley paused for a minute while wiping tears away from her eyes. The young woman gasped while trying to stop herself from crying. "It was you or one of your boys who killed that woman. I know you did it because that's her car. That's Michelle Yang's missing blue Infinity. They gave a description of her car on the news. You killed her." Ashley pointed at Michelle's car, and she couldn't contain her tears. She knew that her boyfriend would kill her since she told him information that could get her killed. The young woman knew that her boyfriend would not let her walk out the chop shop for fear that she might go to the police with her information. Ashley didn't care about dying. The woman didn't want to fear her boyfriend anymore. Ashley watched as her boyfriend slowly reached for his pistol. Instead of running from Carlos, Ashley went berserk on her boyfriend, and she began wailing on his chest using both of her fists. Carlos was about to punch Ashley, but the young gangster hesitated when he saw Ashley's 4-year-old son, Enrique. Carlos saw the little boy at the last minute, and he saw the child walking past car parts to get to his mother. The gangster also saw Ashley's co-worker, Jenna, who Ashley told to watch her child. "Mama?" Enrique nervously called out to his mother while walking up to her. The child had on his Miami Heat basketball jersey, but he wore nothing but his underwear beneath his pint-sized NBA jersey. The little boy was also barefoot. No, baby. Go back to your Auntie Jenna. Mama doesn't want you in here." Ashley tried not to panic when she saw her son. "I told you to watch him," Ashley barked at her co-worker Jenna. The young woman felt disappointed by Jenna, who was also a fellow stripper. She knew that it was stupid of her to bring her son and to leave him in the hands of her fellow stripper girlfriend. "Mama, I'm scared." Enrique mumbled out his words, and his voice sounded like a gentle little breeze. The 4-year-old wanted to be with his mom, and he kept rubbing his eyes, which was something he would do before he would cry. "It's okay, honey. Just stay where you are. Mama's coming to get you," Ashley assured her son while stretching her hand out toward him. The young woman turned back around to look at Carlos. Ashley punched Carlos one last time across his chest before turning away from him to go to her son. The young woman didn't understand that she made a big mistake and that her last strike to Carlos's chest would set him off. Sadly, in Ashley's mind, she felt safe since her friend Jenna was nearby and could call the police if something happened. But Ashley should have known by now that her boyfriend was a madman. It was Carlos's turn to go berserk on his girlfriend. Ashley turned to reach for her son, but before she could go to her child, Carlos knocked her to the ground with a cold and calculated blow to the back of her head. After knocking his girlfriend to the floor, Carlos stomped on Ashley's head, causing the woman to release a blood-curdling scream. Enrique froze in fear after he watched his mother get knocked to the floor and stomped on by his stepfather. The 4-year-old began crying while watching his stepfather beat up his mother. "You fucking bitch!" Carlos roared down at Ashley while slapping the woman across her face repeatedly. "Don't hit me. You respect me." Carlos stood over Ashley, and he continued to punch and slap her across her head. "Shut up!" Carlos looked up and shouted at Enrique, annoyed by the child's crying. "Don't yell at my baby, you bastard!" Ashley hissed up at Carlos through her tears. The young mother defended her son, and she kicked Carlos in his kneecap after he yelled at him. Carlos winced from the pain of getting struck in his leg by his girlfriend's high-heel shoe. The man fell into a rage, and he grabbed Ashley by her hair, dragging her across the chop shop's greasy and dirty floor. Carlos would occasionally punch Ashley in the head while dragging her body across old motor oil that had leaked out of stolen cars. Ashley's co-worker, Jenna, wanted to help Ashley, but the woman was too afraid to stop Carlos, and she knew that she couldn't fight all 7 of Carlos's men. Instead of helping Ashley, Jenna went to comfort Enrique. The woman scooped the little boy up into her arms, and she tried to shield Enrique's eyes. Enrique couldn't stop rubbing his eyes. The child was sobbing, and his tears were causing his eyes to itch intensely. The 4-year-old had to endure watching his stepfather beat up his mother before. He also had to endure abuse from his stepfather. The little boy had small bruises on his legs and arms from his crazed stepfather punching him. Enrique was too young to endure so much violence. The little boy needed a happier childhood. Watching his mom get abused repeatedly would soon have permanent psychological damage on Enrique. "It's okay, sweetie," Jenna whispered in Enrique's ear as she tried her best to comfort the 4-year-old. The young woman put her fingers through Enrique's hair, and she held the little boy's body tight in her arms with her face nestled against his head. "Don't cry," Jenna kept whispering in the little boy's ear as she tried to use her thick fur coat to shield the child's face. Jenna wanted to use her fingers to dry the tears on Enrique's face, and she didn't went to scratch the child's face by accident with her long, yellow-painted fingernails. Jenna knew that she had to do something. She knew that she couldn't just stand and hold Enrique in her arms while watching his mother get beat up. Ashley was Jenna's best friend, and she had to do something. The stripper was about to reach into her purse to get her phone so she could call 911. She kept her arms tight around Enrique's body while reaching into her purse. Jenna almost found her phone, but her hand hovered over her phone where she heard a gun click behind her head. "Don't even think about it, sweetheart." A man's rumbling voice came from behind Jenna. The man was Carlos's oldest brother, Andreas. Andreas kept his .38 Magnum aimed at the back of Jenna's head as he slowly walked around Jenna, stopping in front of her. "Give me your purse," Andreas snarled at Jenna while snatching her purse out of her hand. The criminal slowly backed away from Jenna with his tattooed beefy hand gripping her purse like an alligator gripping its prey. Jenna didn't blink as she stared at the large heavy metal nose on Andreas' revolver. The young woman went back to wiping the tears off Enrique's face, and she held the little boy even tighter in her arms, where she thought Andreas would shoot her and the boy. Jenna tried to be brave, and she wanted to protect her best friend's child, but seeing a man's gun being aimed at her face caused tears to descend from her eyes. Jenna didn't want her and Enrique to die, and she was praying to God not to let a bullet strike her or the child. She knew that her petite but shielding arms wouldn't be enough to protect Enrique from gunfire. "I'm going to show you how I killed that pop star bitch." Carlos was still dragging his girlfriend across the floor while punching her. "I'm going to kill you the same way I killed her. You hear me?" Carlos would go from roaring down at his girlfriend to speaking softly to her. He would have moments where his voice would boom out of him like thunder. Carlos was putting on a show for his men. He enjoyed beating his girlfriend in front of his brothers and the other guys. It empowered him. He knew that he was gaining more respect from his boys with every punch he delivered to his girlfriend's face. Carlos wanted to reinforce his position as the alpha dog to his men. The young thug saw himself as the fictional movie gangster Scarface. He felt that the world belonged to him and that he had a right to destroy anyone who stood in his way. Carlos's brothers and the other men all stood and watched as their leader distributed punishing blows to a helpless young woman. The men watched their king slam his girlfriend's head into the front headlight on his lava-orange Porsche 911 Carrera. Carlos slammed his girlfriend's head into the front of his sports car a second time, knocking her unconscious. Jenna wanted to scream at Carlos when she saw what he was about to do to her co-worker and best friend. The young woman wanted to scream when she saw Carlos pull his gun out of his waistband. Jenna knew that Carlos was about to shoot Ashley in the head while the woman was lying on the floor, blacked out. Jenna had to do something. She was about to scream at Carlos, but her voice locked up when she felt and heard someone creeping up behind her. Jenna was in shock, and she stood motionless when she turned her head slightly to see a slender, dark ninja emerge from behind her. Jenna could tell that the dark ninja was a woman. She knew the woman's curvy hips and her athletically shaped legs. Jenna saw the mysterious woman's full black leather catsuit that fitted tight against her curvaceous body. She saw the black motorcycle helmet that covered the woman's face. In Jenna's eyes, she thought she was looking at some type of superhero ninja. She thought the woman was wearing some kind of costume. Looking at the woman's black leather catsuit reminded Jenna of Catwoman, and seeing the woman's motorcycle helmet made her think about the superhero Black Panther. The mysterious dark ninja moved like a prowler. She also moved like a ballerina on a tightrope. She was stealthy and fluid with her movement. It was as if her feet were levitating above the floor. The mysterious woman had 2 Japanese swords strapped to her back. She was holding what looked like a customized handgun. Jenna wanted to say something to the dark ninja, but her shock from seeing the ninja-like woman locked her tongue. All Jenna could do was watch as the dark ninja slowly reached out to touch Enrique. Jenna knew that the dark ninja didn't mean her or Enrique any harm. She watched as the mysterious woman reached out and caressed Enrique's face. Jenna could sense a motherly atmosphere from the dark ninja. She couldn't get Enrique to stop crying, but as soon as the dark ninja touched Enrique, she amazingly put the little boy at ease when she reached out to caress his face. Jenna wasn't afraid of the figure after she watched her caress Enrique's face. The dark ninja even caressed Jenna's arm as a way of expressing comfort. Enrique saw the dark ninja through his 4-year-old eyes, and he immediately stopped crying. The little boy felt like his mom had caressed his face, even though he could see that the dark ninja figure wasn't his mommy. Enrique reached out to the dark ninja after she touched him, and he didn't feel afraid of her. Enrique thought he was looking at a black Power Ranger. The child saw the ninja woman as being a life-size version of one of his action figure toys. "You need to leave," the dark ninja spoke to Jenna for the first time. The figure was definitely a woman, and her voice had a youthful, benevolent, and sensual intonation with a hint of a Texas accent. "Get out of here, now," the dark ninja gave her orders to Jenna through a gentle whisper. The mysterious woman placed her eyes on Enrique while reaching out to caress the little boy's face again. She giggled from behind her black helmet when Enrique stared at her with his little mouth gaped open. "Who are you?" Jenna asked the dark ninja, finally finding her voice. "Just get out," the dark ninja replied to Jenna with a little forcefulness in her soft voice. Jenna refrained from asking the dark ninja any more questions after she watched the figure reach for one of her swords she had strapped to her back. The young woman did what she was told, and she immediately took Enrique and carried the little boy toward the chop shop's exit. Carlos loaded his gun. The gangster aimed his gun down at his girlfriend's head, and he pulled the trigger only to find out that his gun needed bullets. Carlos didn't enjoy being inconvenienced. He felt that loading his pistol so he could kill his girlfriend was a big inconvenience. For the first time in his life, Carlos inconvenienced himself while trying to shoot his girlfriend. The criminal quickly loaded his semi-automatic pistol. After loading bullets into the gun's chamber, Carlos reinserted the magazine into the handle of his 9mm. He aimed his pistol down at Ashley, and he was about to pull the trigger until he looked up and spotted the dark ninja. Carlos's men looked around at the dark ninja. Seeing the figure perplexed them, and they also felt a sudden dread come over them when they laid eyes on the mysterious dark soldier. All the men, including Carlos's brothers, stepped back from the ninja. The men drew their guns on her, and they were prepared to shoot her. "Excuse me, who are you?" Carlos grunted at the dark ninja as he pointed his loaded gun at her. The gangster was about to shoot the ninja, but the figure performed a lightning-speed move that blew his mind. Carlos shot at the dark ninja, and he watched as the figure grabbed one of his men, using the man's body as a shield. The bad boy couldn't believe how fast the figure could move. Every time he would shoot at the mysterious woman, she would grab one of his men and use the man's body to stop the bullet. Carlos had to stop shooting at the dark ninja, and he had to realize that he was shooting and wounding his own men. Shooting at the ninja was like trying to shoot at a ghost. Carlos couldn't land a single shot on the dark ninja, and neither could his men. Carlos's oldest brother, Andreas, tried to shoot the dark ninja using his .38 Magnum. Andreas died before he could pull the trigger. The gang member knew he was dying when he felt the blade of a sword slice through his throat. Andreas blacked out, and his head fell off his neck after the blade severed his throat and detached his neck from his shoulders. Carlos's other brother, Domingo, fell into a fearful rage after he witnessed his brother get decapitated. The big man tried to tackle the dark ninja, but he lost his life within a few seconds. The dark ninja disemboweled Domingo with her sword, and the man could feel the blade of the sword slicing through his torso. He still tried to attack the dark ninja after getting stabbed in his stomach. Domingo died twice when the dark ninja grabbed him and used his body to stop a bullet while cutting his throat wide open at the same time. The dark ninja was multitasking. She had already killed Carlos's brothers, and now she was working on the rest of his men. There were 8 men altogether, and 4 were dead, which meant that there were 4 more to go. Hector, Lorenzo, Nick, and their boss Carlos were the names of the remaining 4 men. Nick was the first to die. He died when he tried to shoot the dark ninja, only to find out that his gun had no bullets. Somehow, the dark ninja had disarmed him and the other men without them even realizing what happened. Nick died a painful death, and he could do nothing when the dark ninja did a backflip over his head while inserting her sword straight down into the top of his skull. After flipping over Nick and stabbing him in the top of his head, the dark ninja put Nick out of commission for good by plunging her sword through his mouth and twisting the blade. The dark ninja kicked Nick in his chest after removing her sword from his mouth. Lorenzo was the next man to die. He foolishly wrapped his massive bare arms around the dark ninja and he tried to put her into a chokehold. Lorenzo's chokehold was no match against the dark ninja's quick reflexes. She threw the man into the windshield of a parked stolen car, and it took him a minute to notice that his whole left arm was missing and that he was bleeding all over the place. Lorenzo tried to get back on his feet. He tried to keep fighting the dark ninja, but he died as the figure jumped on his shoulders and used her shapely legs to snap the vertebrae in his neck. Lorenzo's body went limp. The tall, tattooed mass of a man fell to the floor like a pile of bricks after the dark ninja dislocated his neck using her inner thighs. Hector didn't want to fight the dark ninja. He saw what happened to Nick and Lorenzo, and he knew that he didn't have a prayer. The man was smarter than his 2 compadres, and he tried to run, but the dark ninja cut his legs out from beneath him using her one leg. Hector went down, and the back of his skull smacked the hard, cold floor. The gangster tried to regain his composure after his head smacked the ground. He looked up through his blurry vision to see the dark ninja standing over him like the angel of death. Hector tried to crawl away from the dark ninja, but the woman brought her steel-toed combat boot down on his leg with tremendous force. Hector was a skinny man, and his leg broke like a twig. The criminal let out a harrowing scream after he felt a bone crack open inside his leg. He looked up at Carlos, wanting his boss to help him, but no one would save Hector. Carlos watched as the dark ninja grabbed a nail gun that sat on the ground near the rear tire of a stolen vehicle. He watched as the dark ninja punctured Hector in the back of his neck with the nail gun, fastening his throat to the floor and putting an end to his screaming. Carlos couldn't shoot at the dark ninja anymore because the dark ninja shot him 3 times in his chest from a distance while she was executing his men one by one at the same time. Carlos could see how the dark ninja killed each of his men in different ways. He couldn't believe that his 2 brothers were dead, and he couldn't believe that he was about to die himself. Carlos could feel the 3 bullets in his chest, and he was down on his knees struggling to breathe. The air inside the chop shop became cold and dense for Carlos. The drug kingpin didn't want to die like his brothers and his other men. He had to fight the dark ninja, even with 3 bullets lodged in his chest. Carlos was defiant, and he refused to let death bring him down. The gangster stood to his feet, and he attempted to throw a punch at the dark ninja. Carlos knew that he was dealing with a woman. He could see how the dark ninja was small and curvaceous. He felt confident that he could handle her, even after watching her kill all of his men using a sword, a few bullets, and a nail gun. The dark ninja invited Carlos to throw a punch at her. She even laid her sword on the ground so she could fight Carlos in hand-to-hand combat. She taunted Carlos. It was a death dance between the dark ninja and the drug dealer. The dark ninja lost her step a little after Carlos slipped through with a punch. The black leather soldier quickly recalculated herself after receiving a hard punch to her chest. Carlos thought he had the ninja under his control after slipping a punch to her chest. The gangster had a false sense of hope. He thought his huge tattooed muscles and his towering physique would help him win against the dark ninja. Carlos became overconfident and he thought he could punch the dark ninja again, but he thought wrong. The dark ninja grabbed Carlos's arm before he could throw another punch. She dislocated the kingpin's arm while shoving her finger into one of the bullet holes in his chest. Carlos roared out from the pain and he pulled away from the dark ninja while grabbing his dislocated elbow. "What's the matter, baby? Did I hurt you?" The dark ninja whispered to Carlos with the slight inflection of a giggle in her voice. "Go to hell!" Carlos spit his words out at the dark ninja. He tried to kick the little mysterious woman in her leg, but he received a hard blow to his ribcage before he could do anything. Carlos dropped to his knee while grabbing his stomach. He experienced getting kicked in his torso by an armor-plated combat boot. Carlos tried to stand back up, but he fell back to the floor after the dark ninja drove her knee straight into his face. Blood spewed out of Carlos's broken nose, and the criminal lost his ability to think after getting hammered in the face by a woman's kneecap. The gangster still tried to stand up. He wanted to hold on to his badass tough guy persona, but he was trying to win a losing battle. "Do you mind if I sing to you?" the dark ninja asked Carlos through her delicate voice. She didn't wait for Carlos to answer. After she nailed Carlos in the face again with her fist, she began singing to the ex-convict, and she revealed her breathtakingly beautiful voice for the first time. The dark ninja's voice was soulfully melodic, yet commanding. Carlos was in a daze after getting jabbed in the face and kicked. The man could hear the woman's beautiful voice, and he didn't know that the dark ninja's voice would be the last thing he would hear. Carlos wanted to stand up. He couldn't let a broken arm, a broken nose, and 3 bullet holes in his chest stop him from fighting back. Carlos knew he was dying. He could feel his body losing blood, and he tried to hold on to his life force, but it was sinking away like sand slipping through his fingers. The dark ninja was singing a sweet lullaby while punching Carlos in his face and knocking him on his back. Another punch sent Carlos' face to the floor. The dark ninja kept singing to Carlos. When he tried to reach for his gun, she brought her foot down on his hand, breaking a few bones in his fingers. "You bitch-ass cunt!" Carlos screamed at the top of his lungs while looking at his broken fingers. The gangster couldn't understand how this little mysterious woman in black leather could pack such a devastating punch. Carlos got lost in his own rage. He leaped up from the floor and tackled the ninja after she broke his hand. It was hard for Carlos to land a punch on the dark ninja. He tried to punch the dark ninja in her stomach, but his fist got blocked by her arm. Carlos tried to strike the woman in her face, but her bulletproof motorcycle helmet protected her face. Carlos broke his other hand after his fist came in contact with the woman's armor-plated helmet. The bad boy tried to fight the dark ninja, but it was like fighting a phantom. Carlos fell to his knees after the dark ninja took her fist and chopped him across his face as hard as she could. After knocking Carlos back to the floor, the dark ninja kicked the criminal in his head as if his head was a soccer ball. "Don't get up." The dark ninja's soft voice went cold after she warned Carlos to stay on the ground. She spoke down to the criminal through an almost hypnotic, motherly tone of voice, which had a threatening fire beneath it. "I'm going to kill you tonight. but I want you to see my face before I do that. The dark ninja pinned Carlos's body to the floor using her knee. She went back to softly singing or reaching up to remove her helmet. What the hell? Carlos gasped through his words. He was out of breath and in a great deal of pain. The young gangster was on the edge of going into severe shock. Carlos was about to lose his mind after the mysterious woman removed her helmet to reveal her face. When Carlos finally saw the woman's face, he thought he was staring up at an apparition. The man screamed when he saw the woman's face. Are you surprised? The mysterious woman asked Carlos while pulling out a semi-automatic Desert Eagle pistol that she had strapped to her waist. I kill bad guys in different ways. Sometimes I'll use my sword or my hunting knife. Sometimes I like to use my hands. But tonight, I'm going to kill you by shooting you in the face. The mysterious woman spoke sharply to Carlos after revealing her pale and hauntingly beautiful face. Jesus, please don't shoot me, lady. You're pretty. Carlos couldn't finish his sentence after the woman shot him in his leg. The young man screamed for mercy after a bullet shattered his kneecap. I didn't mean to do it. I'm sorry. Carlos kept screaming at the top of his lungs, but it was no use. The gangster had to endure getting shot in his shoulder at point-blank range. Ouch. That had to hurt. The mysterious woman mocked Carlos as she laughed at his tormented screams. What the hell are you? Those were Carlos's last words to the dark ninja. The young gangster couldn't talk anymore as the mysterious woman in black shot him twice in his throat. Amazingly, Carlos still tried to hang on to his life, even after feeling 2 steel-jacketed bullets slice through his Adam's apple and his vocal cords. Carlos gurgled up his blood and he began choking on it. The criminal struggled to breathe when he felt blood clogging his windpipe. Carlos could do nothing when he felt blood gushing out of his throat. The Miami bad boy tried to hang on to his life, but when 3 bullets penetrated his eye socket, his forehead, and his cheekbone, the pain from his wounds forced him to let go of life forever. Ashley finally woke up to see a mysterious woman in black shooting her boyfriend to death. The woman didn't know what was going on and her head was still throbbing from her boyfriend knocking her unconscious. Ashley jumped from the sound of the woman's gun going off. She couldn't believe that her boyfriend was lying on the floor dead with multiple gunshot wounds to his face, neck, and chest. She didn't know whether to run or beg for her life after she watched the dark ninja slowly rise with her black combat boot resting on her boyfriend's dead body. Ashley couldn't see the woman's face because the woman put her motorcycle helmet back on after killing Carlos. It's okay. I won't hurt you, the dark ninja said to Ashley while slowly approaching the frightened and disoriented woman. No, please don't shoot me. Ashley crawled away from the dark ninja while putting her hand up to her face. The young woman thought she was dealing with one of her boyfriend's rival gang members. She thought the dark ninja was an assassin from a rival crime organization sent to kill her boyfriend and everyone connected to him. Ashley found out she was wrong about the dark ninja as she watched as the mysterious woman placed her handgun on a magnetic silver belt that decorated her slender waistline. The young woman lost her breath after she watched the dark ninja remove her helmet, revealing her face. Ashley watched as the dark ninja showed her who she really was. The stripper didn't know how to react after she saw the woman's pale and pretty face emerge from behind the black motorcycle helmet. Ashley's eyes widened when she saw the face of the ninja. She realized that the mysterious woman wasn't there to kill her. The mysterious woman's mission was complete after she got what she came for, which was the blood of Ashley's boyfriend. Chapter 3. The SpaceX crew cleaned the starship's luxurious cockpit, and her 3-ton missile-shaped body was standing upright with her nose pointing straight up at the clear blue sky. The Queen Galactica V1 was a starship that was the size of a luxury cruise liner. The SpaceX crew parked the spaceship inside of a space station tunnel that looked like a giant white telescope. The Queen Galactica traveled from Earth to distant stars 23 times. Today would be her 24th time traveling through space at warp speed. The SpaceX station ran busy with technicians who were keeping watch over the Queen Galactica. The technicians prepared the starship for a top-secret mission. The government never revealed the Queen Galactica to the public. She would soon be a commercial vehicle for public use, but at the moment, she was a top-secret government spacecraft designed to do things that science fiction writers prophesied about. If the Queen Galactica could talk, she would tell you her stories of the people she transported to exotic planets. She would talk about the distant stars she reached and the dimensions she crossed into using her warp drive capability. The Queen Galactica was a real-life Star Trek Starship Enterprise, but with no Captain Kirk or Spock to navigate her 4 engines. Instead, in 30 minutes, 3 passengers would ride on the Queen Galactica. The Queen Galactica V1's ion rocket thrusters had plenty of fuel. The space machine was ready to transport a young woman, her baby, and her husband to a distant world in an entirely different universe, billions of light years away from Earth. Chapter 4. Michelle Yang's funeral was ending. Jonathan watched as the cemetery workers lowered his mother's casket into the ground. The child placed flowers on his mother's casket. He watched his father console his grandmother, who almost fainted while watching her daughter's casket disappear into the deep darkness of an open grave. Jonathan walked around his father so he could be near his grandmother, Mary Yang. The little boy took hold of his grandmother's hand and he wanted to comfort her. Mary looked down at her grandson and she tried to smile at the child through her tears, but she was too grief-stricken. Jonathan held his grandmother's hand while watching her use a piece of tissue to dry the tears on her beautiful and gracefully aging face. Jonathan's grandmother didn't look like an old woman. At 64, Grandma Mary looked just as cool and young as her daughter. She had raven black hair with short wispy bangs, which made her look like Maya Wallace's character in the Quentin Tarantino action film Pulp Fiction. She had a slender and robustly sexy physique like her daughter, and her physique could easily match the body of a 25-year-old woman. Grandma Mary also wore a sleeveless black floral dress that draped gracefully over her body. She wore a dazzling necklace that her husband gave her and matching earrings that made her look like an Egyptian queen. Grandma Mary even loved hip-hop, and she started dating a retired actor and rapper who was close friends with her daughter. Jonathan smiled as he looked up at his grandmother, noticing that even her crying was cool and beautiful to watch. Jonathan's father was still trying to comfort his grandmother, but he was also caressing the top of Jonathan's head. Jonathan held on to his grandmother's hand, and he wanted to say goodbye to her, but he knew that saying goodbye to his grandmother would reveal the secret that him and his father were keeping to themselves. It bothered Jonathan to hear his grandmother crying. It also bothered the little boy to hear other family members crying around him. Jonathan tried to find anything that would help him get his mind off the deep sorrow around him. The 7-year-old looked up to see 4 comely-looking old ladies gazing at him. The 4 elderly ladies were standing on the opposite side of the grave, and they were admiring Jonathan with their eyes hidden behind dark designer sunglasses. Wrinkles peppered the old ladies' faces, but the wrinkles in their faces made them look sophisticated and beautiful. "He's so cute. He looks just like his mom," Jonathan overheard one of the old ladies whisper to her friend. Jonathan recognized the 4 ladies because he would always see them at his mom's parties. The child knew that the old women were former pop singers, and he knew that they were close friends with his mom. Jonathan even remembered the names of the 4 old ladies who were staring at him. and blowing kisses at him. Selena, Billy, Ariana, and Cardi were the names of the 4 elderly women, and Jonathan remembered meeting the ladies 3 months ago at his birthday party. He remembered how the ladies kissed all over his face and admired his cuteness at a surprise birthday party that his mom arranged for him. Jonathan always thought the 4 old ladies looked like teenage girls with wrinkles on their faces. He thought the old ladies were cool, especially one lady who reminded him of his mom because of her green hair and her nose ring. It was nice when Jonathan first met the old ladies at his birthday party. He liked the attention they gave him, but now Jonathan didn't want any attention. Jonathan used to like it whenever people would look at him adoringly and tell him how cute he was. He used to like it when people would pinch his cheek, but the child soon grew tired of the attention. Most boys would love the attention, but Jonathan wasn't most boys. The only time Jonathan would love being called cute was if it was coming from his mother, and Jonathan's mother was dead. Jonathan listened to the wind as it roamed throughout the cemetery, kissing the hundreds of headstones and flowers that decorated the graves. Jonathan tried to erase the graveyard headstones from the vast hilly area of land that surrounded him. The little boy imagined that he was standing on top of a mountain. He even imagined that his mother's casket was a treasure chest found deep within the earth. Jonathan used his imagination as escapism. He pretended that he was on a fantasy mountain. The little boy found out that being at a cemetery was worse than being in a funeral home. Jonathan was still holding his grandmother's hand while watching her pat her eyes with a new piece of tissue. The child put his other hand up to his mouth, and he giggled a little when he saw his father trying to cry. Jonathan knew that his father was acting, and he tried to pretend to cry like his father, but it was hard. Craig wiped tears from his eyes while looking down at his son. The man kneeled down beside his son while putting his finger up to his lips when he heard him giggle. Jonathan tried to stop giggling when his father kneeled beside him. The child didn't want to draw negative attention to himself, and he didn't understand why seeing his father attempt to cry made him giggle. "I know it's hard for you to cry, but pretend that you're sad, okay, little guy?" Craig paused for a second while putting his fingers through his son's hair. "Try to work up some tears," Craig continued. "We don't want to look strange to our family members. I know I'm a terrible actor, kiddo. That's why you're laughing at me. But I'm pretending to cry because some of our family members are staring at us, and they're going to wonder why we're not crying." Craig tried to keep tears on his face as he spoke to his son. "I've been trying to cry, but I can't," Jonathan whispered back to his father with a pitiful sparkle in his adorable hazel brown eyes. "I know it's hard." Craig kept brushing his fingers through his son's hair. "We'll leave in a few minutes. I know it's hard to cry, but try to think about something that will make you sad so you can work up some tears, okay?" Craig winked at his little boy before standing back up on his feet. He kissed his son on the jaw before standing back up. Craig held his son close to his waist with his hand still breezing through his son's afro. Jonathan tried to do what his father told him, but he found it hard to work up a single tear. The little boy looked up to see that the 4 ladies were still gazing at him. One of the old ladies, whose name was Cardi, kept blowing kisses at the little boy. Jonathan made the old lady smile when he blew a kiss back at her. The child still tried to make himself cry as he placed his eyes back on his mother's grave. The wind had picked up, and it made a whistling noise as it blew through the cemetery. It was as if the breath of God had taken control of the spring breeze. Jonathan kept listening to the wind. It felt like invisible fingers were caressing his face. It was hard for Jonathan not to cry at first until he thought about how he heard his mom screaming over the phone before the gunman killed her. Jonathan teared up a little when he thought about how his mother went from singing to him over the phone to pleading for her life. Jonathan was about to fall into his tears, but the ringing of his father's smartphone took him away from crying. Someone was calling Jonathan's dad. It was a phone call that Jonathan and his father were expecting. The church pastor was leading everyone in prayer as he stood over the grave of Jonathan's mother. He had to stop his prayer when he heard Craig's loud ringing phone. Everyone shot their eyes on Craig when they heard the hip-hop ringtone coming from his phone. Craig looked thoroughly ashamed after his Big Sean ringtone interrupted the church pastor's prayer. The embarrassed father tried to answer his phone quickly so he could silence the rap star whose voice was blasting out of his phone. Craig answered his phone like a child who was trying not to get caught stealing. Jonathan watched his father answer his phone. He knew who was on the other end of his dad's phone. "Okay, we're coming. Be there in a second," Craig said in a whisper to the person on the other end of the phone. The man slowly took his phone away from his ear, and he looked around at the family members who were still staring at him. Craig could feel judgment upon him for letting his phone ring during a funeral service. Jonathan and his father prepared to leave the cemetery, even though they were being stared at by family members. The father and son made their way through the crowd toward the cemetery's exit. Jonathan slowly let go of his grandmother's hand, and the child turned to walk away from his mother's gravesite. "Where's my grandson going?" "Craig, where are you taking him?" Jonathan's grandmother asked after she watched Craig take her grandson by the hand. We have somewhere we need to be. I'm sorry, but we have to leave. We love you." Craig knew that the answer he gave his mother-in-law was unsatisfying to the woman, but he answered her the best way he could. "My daughter is still being buried. She's your wife and the mother of my grandbaby. You're just going to leave her funeral because you have to be somewhere?" Mary chastised Craig, and his behavior outraged her. The old woman placed her hand on her hip, and she became so angry with Craig that her bottom lip quivered. Craig could feel his mother-in-law's wrath, and he wanted to get away from her before she exploded on him. Craig also felt his wife's family members burning their stares on him. The hostility toward Craig was so thick in the air that he could cut it with a knife. Craig wanted to explain why him and his son had to leave, but he knew he couldn't. After checking his watch, the father took out running while holding on tight to his son's hand. "Craig! Craig!" Mary shouted. She could believe that her son-in-law was running away from her and was taking her grandson with him. Craig's behavior shocked the grandmother. She became upset while thinking her daughter married a man who didn't love her enough to stay at her funeral. Jonathan and his dad ran through a crowd of people dressed in black. The father and son were tired of looking at people wearing black clothing. They grew tired of looking at flowers, caskets, and headstones. Craig and Jonathan ran through the cemetery like two escaped convicts. Jonathan kept up the pace with his dad, and he made sure not to let go of his father's hand. The child felt a little bad when he looked over his shoulder to see his grandmother standing hauntingly still in the midst of the other family members with her face covered in tears. Jonathan could see that his grandma was crying, even though she was becoming more distant with every running step he took with his father. The child didn't want to leave his grandma, but he knew that he couldn't stay. "She's up there," Craig excitedly told his son while pointing ahead at a dark blue metallic Cadillac Escalade that was parked in front of the cemetery's front entrance gate. Jonathan and his father were running toward the car with excitement racing through their veins. Jonathan knew it was his mother's Cadillac parked in front of the cemetery's gates. The child knew that his mother was sitting inside the car even though it had tinted windows. Jonathan saw the Cadillac before. He knew that his mother drove two cars, which was her blue Infiniti Hybrid and her Cadillac. The little boy always thought his mother's Cadillac Escalade was cooler than her other car. The Cadillac's tires had custom chrome 22-inch rims, which made the luxury SUV look like it was sitting on tires made from diamonds. Jonathan always thought his mother's Cadillac Escalade fit her personality. It looked tough, but it had a futuristic, pretty design, and its engine was devastatingly powerful. As Jonathan and his father got closer to his mother's Cadillac, he could hear its V8 engine purring. The little boy could also hear his mother's favorite rap song booming out of her Cadillac at a low volume. The rap tune, Desires by Drake and Future, greeted Jonathan's ears. The child thought about how his mother would always have this rap song softly booming inside her Cadillac every time she'd pick him up from school. It only took a few seconds, and Jonathan was the first to reach the Cadillac's driver's side door. When the little boy opened the door, he saw a gorgeously slender young Asian woman in a strapless, skin-tight red dress sitting behind the wheel. The young woman had a beautiful edge to her face and body. Her Cadillac's white leather interior and its luxurious technology surrounded her sexy physique. Jonathan could see how the Cadillac's white leather interior matched the color of his mother's Mohawk-style pompadour haircut, which had a Marilyn Monroe-like influence. The young mother's hairstyle gave her the classic beauty image of a 1950s Hollywood actress. She also had a sexy retro-style futuristic appearance which would have made her fit perfectly in a Matrix movie. "Johnny, baby," Michelle shouted after embracing her son faster than a lightning bolt. The young mother unfastened her seatbelt so she could fully embrace her child. "Mommy," Jonathan crawled into his mother's lap while wrapping his arms around her. The child could smell his mother's citrus-scented perfume, and he couldn't believe that she was holding him in her arms. Jonathan felt thrilled to be in his mother's arms after seeing her corpse in a casket. The child felt like his mother never died. While hugging his mom, Jonathan forgot how he heard his mother being murdered over the phone. The little boy forgot all the pain after he felt his mother's warm, slender arms embrace him and cuddle him. "I'm so happy to see you," Michelle whispered to her son after kissing him on his lips. "I'm sorry you had to go to my funeral," the young mother added while holding her son in her lap and giggling a little. "Dad told me about you. He told me how you're my mommy, but you came from an alternate universe." Jonathan told his mom everything while smiling at her and revealing the tiny dimples in his cheeks. Michelle giggled. "It sounds like a science fiction movie, doesn't it?" The mother kissed her son again before looking around at Craig, who was sitting in the back seat with his hand up to his smiling lips. Michelle never took her eyes off Craig after he leaned forward and kissed her. She knew that he was a man who would soon be her husband. "You told him everything, didn't you?" Michelle's question eased from between her full lips, and she smirked at Craig while squinting her intensely beautiful eyes at him. Craig nodded his head shamefully. "I had to tell him to keep him from being too sad at your funeral. He lost his mom in this universe, but I had to tell him that his mother was still alive, but in another universe. It was hard explaining to my boy that his mom was still alive in a parallel universe. He didn't believe me when I told him I met you on one of my space missions 3 months ago." Craig paused while chuckling and folding his arms. "I didn't want to confuse my boy too much, but I told him that there were multiple copies of Earth out there in space and that I traveled to one of those copies and met you." Craig stopped talking when Michelle came in with her words. "So you told a 7-year-old boy about parallel universes and multiple copies of Earth?" Michelle raised her eyebrows at Craig with a smirk still on her face. "You told him how you met me on another Earth?" Michelle kept quizzing Craig, as she didn't want Craig to tell Jonathan because she feared that it would confuse the child and possibly traumatize him. Michelle didn't want her child to see her as being an alien from another world. The young woman wanted her son to still view her as being his mother, but from an alternate dimension. Michelle was so happy to be holding her son again. She experienced losing her son on the Earth that she came from. On Michelle's alternate Earth, a car accident killed her husband and her son. Her deceased husband and son were identical to Craig and Jonathan. Michelle had to deal with losing her son, just like her son had to deal with losing the other version of his mom. "Daddy explained everything to me," Jonathan whispered to his mom. "It confused me at first, but then Daddy told me how you were my mommy's twin sister who came from another Earth, and I understood that. He told me how all of us have cosmic twins living in other universes. And he told me that each universe has a copy of Earth and that they're the same as this Earth, but with subtle differences. Jonathan amazingly sounded like a little college professor as he explained to his mom everything his father told him. The little boy was precocious and very intelligent for a 7-year-old. He could see the slight shock on his mom's face after he explained what his father told him. Michelle looked back at Craig. "Did you really have to tell my baby all that scientific shit?" The mother didn't mean to say a curse word in front of her child, and she giggled profusely while watching as Craig slowly nodded his head at her. "I had to explain it to him, and I tried to explain it to him the best way I could, without sounding insane." Craig chuckled up his words as he reached out to caress his son's forehead. "I just told him, like he just told you, that you were his mother's cosmic twin sister who I met on another Earth. That's all. I told him how all of us have different versions of ourselves living out there in space. I told him that it was like mirror reflections of our universe." Craig felt like he was explaining the plot to a science fiction action movie. "I wanted to ask you this. Did the other Michelle know about me?" The alternate Michelle asked her husband-to-be as she watched as Craig looked down while rubbing his hands together. "I think she knew I was seeing another woman, but she didn't know that the other woman I was seeing was a copy of her. It would have stunned her if she found out I was seeing a woman identical to her from another Earth." Craig had a subtle heartbroken tenseness in his voice. "I loved my other Michelle. I loved my wife, but when I met you, I could see that you had something that she didn't have. You seemed more patient than her." Craig stated his feelings. He didn't want to feel like he was bad-mouthing his deceased wife in front of a woman who was a similar version of his wife. "I'm sorry about what happened to the other Michelle." Michelle spoke out with a strange guilt in her voice while reaching into the back seat to take hold of Craig's hand. Craig held Michelle's hand against his face. "You got nothing to be sorry about. My other Michelle's death wasn't your fault. A gunman killed my wife and the mother of my boy. The gunman is the one who should be sorry." Craig spoke out his words with a gentle intensity in his voice. Michelle took her eyes off Craig and she looked back at Jonathan, giving the child a smile full of pure blissfulness. Michelle made Jonathan giggle when she used the tip of her nose to tickle his face. She had been waiting for this moment to have her husband and son back in her life again, even though they were different versions of her husband and son. "I never lost my wife because I found you," Craig proclaimed to the alternate Michelle. "I used to laugh at the theories of parallel universes. I laughed at my university professor when he told me that there was a possibility of the multiverse. He told me that crazy mess that there were multiple universes and each of us had a counterpart who lived in those universes. That sounded wacko to me until I became an astronaut." Craig put his hand up to his head while chuckling softly. "I think it still sounds insane," Michelle said through a giggle while still holding Craig's hand. "I know that I'm your wife's copy or twin, and it seems like I never died. I know you told me I'm different from the other Michelle. You told me I was more open-minded than her, even though we're both identical." Michelle brought up everything Craig told her. She wanted to tell Craig something more. She wanted to tell him she had a slightly darker edge to her personality than the other Michelle. The alternate Michelle wanted to tell Craig and Jonathan the truth about herself and what she did a few nights ago. She wanted to tell her new husband and child that she paid a convicted felon to kill the other Michelle so that she could take over the woman's life. She wanted to tell her new husband and son that she later regretted what she did. She killed the hitman whose name was Carlos Mendoza, but she couldn't do that. "Yeah, I told you how you were a little different from my other Michelle," Craig said through a warm smile. "Sometimes I feel guilty when I think about how I cheated on her, but then I feel weird when I realize that I was having an affair with a woman identical to my wife. I mean, you're the same as Michelle. You might be a little different, but the two of you were the same woman. Basically, you are Michelle. The only thing is that you came from another Earth. When I think about it, was I really cheating on my wife with you? Craig gazed at Michelle, and he could feel himself becoming a little teary-eyed. Michelle sighed while caressing Craig's chin. I don't think you were cheating on her. You shouldn't feel guilty, Michelle told her husband-to-be. I really felt bad about what happened to her. She's like an extension of me, and the gunman who killed her that night killed me too. Even though I'm alive. I know that sounds crazy. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep talking about this in front of my baby. I know I'm his mom now, but I don't want to keep talking about the death of his other mom in front of him. Michelle looked at Jonathan as she kissed the boy's forehead. The woman didn't want to keep bringing up the death of Jonathan's mother, even though she was an alternate version of the little boy's mom. It's okay. It doesn't bother me, Jonathan said while smiling. The little boy was hugging a woman who was a cosmic twin to his mom, which made him believe that he had his mother with him all this time and that a gunman never killed her. Jonathan felt like he had his mother back in his life again, and he found no reason to be sad. I just wanted to tell you, I'm sorry, Johnny baby. I'm sorry that you had to go to my funeral. I'm sorry that I died, Michelle whispered to Jonathan with her forehead resting against his face. I'm sorry that the gunman killed me and took me away from you. And I'm sorry that you had to go through losing me. But now I'm right here with you, and you will never, ever have to deal with losing your mommy again. Michelle soothed Jonathan with her words as she kept kissing the little boy all over his face. The young mother watched as her son ran his little finger across a tattoo on her shoulder. She loved feeling Jonathan's finger massaging her shoulder. Cuddling the little boy in her lap was like holding an angel in her arms. I don't think you have nothing to be sorry about, Craig told Michelle after listening to her passionately apologize to Jonathan. Like I said before, the gunman is the one who caused this mess. Craig wanted to get his hands on the gunman who murdered his other Michelle, but there was something he didn't know. Craig didn't know that the gunman who killed his other Michelle was already dead, and he also would never know that the alternate Michelle paid the gunman to kill his other wife so that she could have him and his son for herself. It was a dark secret that Craig would never know about. The gunman who killed the other Michelle will pay for what he did. Bad guys don't get away with things. Michelle spoke to Craig with a confident strength in her beautiful voice, and she smirked at her husband-to-be. Michelle killed a woman who was a copy of her. Technically, she killed herself, and she knew that her dark secret would torment her for the rest of her life. Michelle tried to ignore the fact that she paid an ex-convict to kill a woman identical to her. She knew that killing the hitman she hired would never reverse her mistake. She knew that the dead Michelle would haunt her dreams from the grave, but the other Michelle was willing to accept her guilt so she could have the husband and little boy she always dreamed about. The alternate Michelle knew that her dark secret would come out and get her in trouble sooner or later, but for now, the young woman was willing to have her pleasure before pain. So, did you guys like that story? I hope you did. It's not one of my best, so if you guys tear it apart, I completely understand. So you guys let me know what you thought about it. I told you I wrote it a year ago. I was still a little rusty with my writing, so I know it might have been a little repetitive in certain parts. So maybe I should have edited it before I read it to you guys, but I hope you liked it. So you guys can let me know what you thought about Mortal Ninja Queen. If I sound a little weird, I had a little bit of a sinus cold, so that's why I kind of fumbled over my words a little. But I hope you guys liked this story, and I'll be back next time with another After Dark fairy tales. And yes, this is one of my first hour-long stories. From time to time, I'll probably be putting out stories that are a little longer than 20 minutes. But I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about Michelle Yang and her alternate self. And and her son and her husband and everything. So I hope you guys like that one. It's more like a science fiction action thing. But yeah, so you guys let me know in the comments what you thought of Mortal Ninja Queen, and give me some feedback. And until next time, good night, my darlings.